It is no secret that the Kia e-niro was, or maybe still is, one of my favorite EVs. It wasn't exciting or anything, but it offered decent space, a really good efficiency and range for a decent enough price. And behind me here is the second generation Kia e-niro, or actually Niro EV, because that is the new name. So is this second generation a evolution, a revolution, or are you better off saving a bit more money and buy an EV6? Hello there monsters and men, ladies and people. Again, behind me is the second generation Kia Niro EV, and welcome to Recharging. The Kia Niro EV is available with one battery pack and one motor. The battery pack has a capacity of almost 65 kilowatt hours, and according to the WLTP you can do 463 kilometers. The motor still has 204 horsepower, but with 255 Newton meters of torque it has less torque than before. The reason why Kia did this is because this is a front-wheel drive car. And a characteristic of a front-wheel drive electric car is that the front wheels tend to spin if you floor the accelerator pedal or when the roads are wet. And Kia also got that feedback from their e-niro customers. The front wheels tend to spin a lot. You could feel that force in the steering wheel, and to reduce this, Kia reduced the torque. And I have to say though, it helped. It happens a lot less than before. But still, on a wet road for example, the front wheels do still spin, but again, every front-wheel drive electric car does that. And at last, the Kia can do 0 to 100 in around 7.8 seconds. The previous generation Kia e-niro was quite a boring car to look at. Nothing insulting, but nothing to tickle your senses. But look at this second generation. Still recognizable as a Niro, still recognizable as a Kia, but much more interesting to look at. I do like the design of this new Kia e-niro. I mean, Niro EV, I'm sorry. Yes, you might have noticed that this is an electric car, I told you that, but it still has a relatively long nose. Car makers, why do you do this with EVs? Well, Kia has a good excuse, and that is because this car is front-wheel drive, so that means the electric motor is under here, and also the Niro is still available as a normal hybrid and as a plug-in hybrid. Yes indeed, just like many other new cars, the Kia Niro has a massive C-pillar, as you can see, which is terrible for visibility to the rear. But as you can see on the picture, you can get this C-pillar in a contrasting color. Funky, isn't it? And also, behind this C-pillar is actually a real hole to guide air from the side to the rear to improve aerodynamics. The rear of the new Niro is completely different than that of the previous generation, and it goes against the trend of having a rear light that stretches over the whole rear of the car. I do like what Kia has done here. The Niro has slim headlights here at the top, and then your turning signal is here in the bumper. Again, I do like it. It is different, but it is modern. And then, if I open up the boot, you will see, oh yes, it is electric because this is the top trim model and the base model doesn't have it. A boot space of 475 liters. If I fold down the rear seat, you will get a boot space of 1392 liters. Also, gone is the boot cover, as you can see. No, I'm kidding, it's not gone, it's not gone. But gone is the hard boot cover, because the boot cover of this Niro is this thing over here. It is like cloth or sort of tent. And as you can see, it is very flexible. And the press guy of Kia told me that you can fold this just like a Decathlon festival tent. People in Europe probably know what I'm talking about. So you can fold it like this, something like that, and then store it under the boot floor. But I discovered that it fits under the boot floor just fine like this, so there's no need to fold it. And yes, it does have a frunk of a whopping 20 liters. The previous generation Niro isn't an exciting car to drive. It does what it has to do without any excitement, and that is absolutely fine. And the same thing applies to this new generation Niro. Where the previous generation, the suspension could be a bit on the firm side, in this new generation the suspension is more comfortable. The downside of this is though that you can feel the weight of the car more in the corners, especially when you take a corner with the higher speed. No sporty driving with this new Niro. The car is not made for that. But again, it does what it has to do in all comfort, and it is an excellent family cruiser, and that is what matters to most people. The previous generation also wasn't the most quiet car in the world, and this new generation also isn't the most quiet car out there. A Volkswagen ID3 and especially a ID4 are quieter than this Niro. I think it's fine though, I have no problems with it. It is just a fact that other cars are more quiet than this car. But then the driving position. Like all Kia and Hyundais, the driving position is really good. You have good seats, nice fixed steering wheel, plenty of adjustability in the steering wheel and the seats. And also in this new generation, the seats go nice and low in the car, so you don't have the feeling you sit on top of the car. Welcome back to 2023. Just like the exterior, the interior has got a needed update. You actually see a lot of EV6 in here now, like the drive selector, the cluster here in the middle, the steering wheel itself. The whole interior is now in line with new Kia interiors, which is a good thing if you ask me, because I like new Kia interiors. I think Kia and Hyundai have the balance of physical buttons and putting stuff in the infotainment system just right. You still have physical buttons for your heated seat, your ventilated seat, your heated steering wheel, physical buttons on the steering wheel, so no haptic feedback buttons on the steering wheel. Hallelujah. And also the cluster here in the middle is a very clever solution. If you don't know the cluster here in the middle yet, it has two functions. You can control your media with it, like your radio, your volume, you're going to the navigation, for example. And if you press a button here in the middle, a touch sensitive button, then it switches over to your climate control. Climate control. What a fun word. Anyway, so two functions. And another thing that I found out, or actually the press guy of Kia found out, is that you can set a default in this cluster. If you hold the switch button for like 5 seconds, you can set which functionality is your default functionality. So that means my default functionality is my media control. So I can control my volume, my source of my audio, and if I want to adjust the temperature, I press the switch button, I adjust the temperature, and after 5 seconds, the cluster automatically switches back to my media control, so that when I want to adjust the volume, I don't accidentally adjust the temperature. I think that is a very smart thing, and if you didn't know it yet, again, press and hold the switch button for like 5 seconds and you can configure it. Then the cubby space in this car, I have to admit, it is a bit disappointing because the door pockets don't even fit a 1 liter bottle. Like what? I've never seen that in a car. They are really tiny. There is quite a huge cubby here in the middle and under the center armrest with 2 optional cup holders and a divider, so you can make it in 1 large cubby or divide it in a few little ones. And the glove box is of a decent size. The infotainment system is the same system that is used in all Kias and Hyundais, and in the past it was one of the better systems to use. But I have to admit, it is a bit falling behind. With the adding of more features, it gets more difficult to find stuff and it is just not as intuitive anymore. It is still responsive though and an okay system to use. Again, it is just falling behind a little bit. And also the position of the infotainment system in the Niro could be better if you ask me. I know, people find it silly when there is a tablet here on the dashboard, but It has a reason, and the reason is your eyes are closer to the road when your eyes are located here than when they are located here. So if you ask me, the screen should be moved up a little. Let's have a look at the rear seats. The seat in front of me is in my typical driving position. I am 1 meter and 85 centimeters and I have plenty of knee room. Headroom is also fine actually. I can shove my feet under the seat in front of me. Barely though, but I can do it, so that is also good. There is a flat floor here, there's no hump in the middle, but the floor of the car is quite high, as with most electric cars, and therefore support here under my legs can be better. The car is also not the widest, so sitting here with 3 people like me should be fine, but sitting here with 3 people who are a bit more bulky can be a bit cozy. Besides that, there are flaps here behind the seats to store magazines, for example. There are USB ports here in the seat, separate air vents, and a armrest with 2 cup holders. So, as I have already said, the Kia Niro has a WLTP range of 463 kilometers. And knowing Kias and Hyundais, it should be able to do this in the real world. But can it? Well, I have good news because it can. This car is just as efficient as the previous generation, and that makes me a happy reviewer. It is such a strong point of this car. Doing mixed traffic, you can get that WLTP range of 463 kilometers. Doing 100 to 110 kilometers per hour on the highway, 400 kilometers of range, easy. Doing 130 kilometers per hour on the highway, in good conditions, you can get 300 kilometers of range. If it is a bit colder, 260 to 275, but still, for a car of this size, it is a really efficient car. And again, that makes me really happy. Just like every new Kia and Hyundai, this Kia Niro has flippers behind the steering wheel to determine the amount of regeneration that you want. It can do everything from coasting to one pedal driving. And there's also a automatic mode, and in the automatic mode it uses the radar in front of the car to determine how much regeneration it should apply. And I have to say, the transition between driving or accelerating and regenerating feels a lot smoother than in the previous generation. And also, if you want to save even more energy, in some countries, not the Netherlands, the e-niro or the Niro EV, sorry again, is also available with a heat pump. The fast charging capabilities of the previous generation electric Kia Niro is the biggest flaw of that car. But here it is, the new and improved Kia Niro EV, a car that came out in 2022. And therefore it does have a fast charging speed of more than 125 kilowatts, right? Yeah, no. It only has a maximum fast charging speed of 80 kilowatts, and for 2022 that was already pretty low. Kia did improve the charging curve though, and therefore charging it from 10 to 80% takes 5 to 10 minutes less than the previous generation, but it still takes around 40 to 45 minutes. And for today's standard, again, that is pretty long. Kia has added preconditioning of the battery pack though. So that means when you navigate to a fast charger, in the navigation, the car preheats the battery to receive the maximum fast charging speed at the fast charger. The previous generation didn't have that. So that meant that when you went to a fast charger, when it was cold, it could take up to 25 minutes for the battery to warm up. This car shouldn't have that, or at least a lot less. And at last, depending on what version you get, this car does have support for vehicle to load. So that means you get an adapter for the charge port over here, and then you can power whatever you want from the battery of this car. For my final verdict, let's get back to the starting question. Is this Niro EV a evolution, a revolution, or are you better off buying an EV6? Well, let me start with the fact, or my fact, that the Niro EV is not a revolution. Yes, Kia brought the interior and the ride back to 2023, but they forgot to improve the biggest flaw of the e-niro, the fast charging capabilities. And if this is a problem, is up to you. If you are like me, 400 kilometers of real-world range will bring me anywhere in the Netherlands and home, then fast charging is not that big of a deal. I only have to fast charge when I go on a longer trip, so maybe on holiday, and then I don't mind to wait maybe 10 or 20 minutes because I charge twice longer than a other electric car. So this e-niro is perfect for me. But if fast charging is a big deal for you, then you might be better off saving a bit more money and buying an EV6. And that was the review of the Kia Niro EV. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please give a like. If you have something to say, leave a comment, and it would be awesome if you subscribed. And then I would like to say now thank you a lot for watching, and as always, to be continued.